Hi everybody, we are in chapter 12 of the book of Samuel. Rabbi, thank you for joining us. This chapter, we are here in Jerusalem, the city of the king. And this chapter is all about kingship, about what a king really should be. We start here where Samuel is now moving to the background. He basically says to them, I've given you the king, we've inaugurated him, remember what he should be doing. And then he moves to the background, but as he is moving to the background, he brings out his integrity and he says, remember, I didn't take anything from you. The same speech that parallels with Moshe, that we see also with Nehemiah, with Nehemiah, that they say, remember that we didn't take any bribes, we didn't take anything from you. What do we see from this?
Well, it's interesting, the parallel with Moshe especially, because Moshe gives that speech when there is an attempt to replace him. Which means that there is an attempted coup, which is interesting, which is Korach. Of course, the question is, was Korach trying to replace Moshe or trying to replace Aaron? Or by replacing Aaron, will he therefore make Moshe that much more vulnerable? Because if Moshe actually agrees, then by inference Moshe appointed Aaron, therefore Moshe is guilty of nepotism, which therefore Moshe's position is completely compromised. So that's where Moshe gave that speech. I didn't do anything. I didn't take anything from you people, which I think we need to pause. What exactly is leadership? I mean, there are some people who would see leadership as an opportunity in order to enrich themselves. A leader is somebody who can take things from people. And it's actually part of the way.
So many people are tempted by that.
Yes, and it's part of the way that he actually warns them in terms of what a king is going to do. A king can take things, but he's saying, I never took anything, which again echoes of Moshe. And what's in the background is this shift that we've noted. It's the shift between the leadership, which we've had various forms, be it the Kohanim, which is again interesting because it should be much more spiritual, going the leaders of the judges, which also should be bringing the word of God to the people, not just in terms of economic issues
or protection.
And we've moved from the prophet, who again literally takes the word of God. So it's interesting that Shaul became the king when he was infused with that spirit of God. Of course, the way that it manifests itself was this preparedness of going to war and therefore defending God's people. But over here, Shmuel is now going to step somewhat aside because he's not going to be the main leader anymore because he has been replaced.
He then goes on and he just takes them down memory lane and he says, God took you out of Egypt. God appointed judges. He names the judges at that point. But it comes back to the verse here in verse 12 where he says, they say, no, we must have a king reigning over us, though the Lord your God is your king. Meaning that even an earthly king should be proactive, not only protecting, not only judging. He should be proactive in connecting the people in their understanding of God and understanding that God is the ultimate king.
Right. This speech itself is a very God-centric speech. God is in the center of the speech over here. And that's something which is important. Which means, how often can you hear a Dvar Torah and it can speak of all kinds of things, but God was never mentioned in the whole thing. And is there something lacking if that's the case? Shmuel over here apparently feels that God needs to be mentioned. And you talk about the proactive leadership. So it's very interesting that Shaul sees his role as the one who's going to protect the people, which again is going to be a defensive position. It's not going to be proactive. While you compare for another king, Shlomo. Shlomo sees his role to build the house of God, to build the Beit HaMikdash. That's a very, very different role. That's to bring God into the people's lives. So over here, that is really what Shmuel seems to be noting, is that you're going to have a king, but there's something which is essentially important. And what's important is that you use the king for the right reasons and the right way, and God will always be in your lives. The rejection of God, a king is not going to help. If you don't follow God, the king won't help. You need to follow God, and then the king can help you in your situations. It's ultimately not about the war, not the battle, not about the bravery, not about the arms, not about the strength. It's ultimately about the belief in God, and that's really, I think, the major point of what Shmuel is trying to get across.
Here, what I find is that you saying that they should understand that the king is not God, but I think also the king himself should instill that into the people, that he is not God and that he's only a conduit into pulling the focus back to God.
Right. And this seems to be ultimately going to be the difference between the kingship of Shaul versus of David and Ben David. This God-centric feeling and this desire, this looking, the seeking for God in our lives. And Shaul, again, it's hard to make broad statements, seems to be so much more concerned with the Jewish people than he seems to be with the God of the Jewish people. And now if you pay attention to the speech which he's giving, which is a very broad historical speech, going all the way back, we went into Egypt, but you screamed to God and you prayed to God, and therefore God was able to send the person to help you, which means Moshe is able to take us out, but only after the people turn to God, and then Moshe leads them towards God. Meaning that's the type of leadership. And again, it's all about history. Follow God and we'll be okay. Ignore God, we're going to have problems.
In his defense, Rabbi, I feel that he just saw now that he needs to protect the people. David HaMelech to also settle the land, also wage war. By the time Solomon got to the place where he had to build the Beit HaMikdash, the war settled, the land was settled. But as you say, in whatever situation you are, if you're fighting, settling, if you're moving forward, you have to always keep your focus on God at that point. Whatever the leadership is requesting and demanding from you at that point.
Correct. And that's what Shmuel keeps on coming back to again. Again, for his part, he's been honest, integrity.
Correct.
He's done what he needs to do. And this is going to be a different type of relationship, but it needs to be one with God in the center. And if God is not in the center, then even having a king is not going to help you. Your desire for a king is wonderful if it's something where God is still in your consciousness and following the rules and following the word of God. Without this, then this will be a failure.
And that's where we end this whole chapter. Again, it comes at the end where it says, above all, you must revere the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart, and consider how grandly he has dealt with you.